I'm worried that the billionaires are taking over the climate movement. How do we start this?
You need to be thinking about it with each decision. Each decision you make has an impact, and I don't think that that's quite clicked with a lot of people.
I was going to ride my bike from my house in Point Clark all the way up the peninsula to Tobermory.
I just hear like fear, and then people become stagnant.
People are getting involved. It's really just backing a youth.
How we can support young people in our communities on climate change on this hot, stormy and summery evening to discuss how we all move forward on climate action. It is important that we begin by recognizing that we are all around here gathered on the territory of indigenous peoples. In Gray and Bruce, this is the territory of the Anishinaabe Nation, the people of the Three Fires, Ottawa, Potawatomi, and Ojibwe, who gathered and governed here since time immemorial and who are represented today by the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, consisting of communities of Saugeen First Nation and the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation at Neyashe-Inigate-Mi'ing. We also recognize these as the lands of the Métis Nation of Ontario. By gathering on these lands, we are all treaty people with all the relations and all responsibilities that entails. And we are also cognizant of the children that are found these days, the Indigenous children at the former residential schools.
Thank you, Joachim. There's a tornado touching down in Barrie today. There's all sorts of crazy weather, and that's top of mind as well when we think about what we're talking about tonight and what we're doing to the planet. I'm not going to talk very much tonight. I just want to see, and I know we're all curious, the volunteers with the climate action team, we're curious about what issues concern them the most. We want to know about their experiences with activism, and we want to find out what we can do to assist in making the path easier for our young leaders in Gray and Bruce and the traditional territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. I'll pass the floor over to Anna Zandvliet. Anna is a high school student who lives in Georgian Bluffs, and she's a member of the Georgian Bluffs Climate Action team.
Thanks, Lee. And thank you to all the people who organized this evening, the speakers, and of course, you guys coming on to join to listen to us. So for the past few months, I've been involved in a volunteer movement under the David Suzuki Foundation called Butterfly Way. And the main goal of the project is to create what they call pollinator patches. So they're gardens of any size that make habitat and food for our native pollinators. And a big goal is to have as many native plants in these gardens as possible, because these are the plants that have evolved with our pollinators over thousands of years. So, and they have very intricate and important relationships. So these pollinators include bees, butterflies, and also wasps, moths, flies, beetles, and who have all been in steep decline over the past few decades. An important part of the Butterfly Way is and helping pollinators in general is having diversity. So the more different types of plants and flowers, the more different types of pollinators you'll attract. In Canada alone, we have about 800 species of bees, but when we first think about bees, we often think about honeybees or bumblebees, and these are social bees, but actually 90% of our native bees are solitary, and most live in nest in the ground, while others nest in cavities like old plant stems and wood. And so when I've been thinking about what plants to put in my pollinator patches, I try and think of different plants that bloom at different seasons, have different colors and different flower shapes. So some, like a daisy, for instance, it's very easy for a bee or a butterfly to get nectar, but something like a phlox is a lot harder, so it attracts different types of pollinators. Another way that we need to change our habits to help our pollinators in the earth is to change our perspective. So one thing that we can start with is just something small like a bee. When we think of bees, we often think of something that can sting us and is kind of dangerous, but actually all of our native bees don't like to sting. They only sting if they feel that their nest or eggs are in danger. So they don't want to get sting you any more than you want to get stung. It's usually actually wasps that sting you or are attracted to your food, but wasps are also, just like the bees, very important for their ecological services because they keep a lot of insects under control with their population because they're predators. Plants and insects are the basis of all the food chains, so especially in the terrestrial food chain. So the plants get the sun from the energy from the sun, and then insects are very important in getting this energy up to the higher levels in the ecosystem. So just as one example, 96% of our land birds feed their young mostly on caterpillars because they're full of great things like protein and they're easy for the little birds to eat. What I've loved most about this project is not only learning about how the plants work, but also just how complex and intricate these ecosystems are. And I could say a lot more crazy things that could be happening in your garden, but the last thing I'll say is we have a lot to learn from the plants and animals around us. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. And that sounds like it's taking up a lot of your time, so that's great work. Moving right along, we'll go to Joachim. Do you want to introduce Aidan?
I think most of us have heard of Aidan and have heard him. He also was very active in Friday for Future and other demonstrations in town. So thanks, Aidan, for being here, and it's all yours.
My name is Aidan, and yes, like Joachim already said, I've been involved with the climate movement for about 2 years. And today I'm going to be talking about false solutions versus real solutions. And I'd like to bring forth a warning because I feel that over the past year there's been more and more, there's been a burgeoning campaign for false solutions that is a threat and could even lead some of us astray. One of the things I've seen over the last year is more and more corporations saying that they're now going to take a stand and going fossil fuel free or investing in green energy, green technology. Often the focus is on potentially harmful technologies, such as geoengineering, like releasing chemicals into the atmosphere to help cool the planet instead of healing the earth, or gene editing and fake plant-based food that's produced in a lab, like altering the genome of plants, which they say would help us adapt to a changing climate instead of local and fresh organic food. Robotic farming, saying that it's better to go towards autonomous tractors and drones without farmers instead of small organic farmers and local fresh food. Nuclear power, saying that it's zero carbon, going to help, but when it produces highly toxic waste that will be around for thousands of years, instead of reducing our electricity use. Carbon capture is the same, like a false hope, and not things that are right in front of us, like regenerative agriculture. That can capture carbon, and it's something that we can do right now without waiting for the government to do it for us. A huge example of this is Bill Gates and his new book, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster, which was published in February. All of it was focused on technological solutions, overshadowing the local solutions that work and that we can build. A few months ago, I was attending an online conference, and Dr. Vandana Shiva was one of the speakers. Dr. Shiva is one of the world's most prominent environmentalists from India, and she's the leader of Navdanya. And environmental organization that supports food sovereignty. And so I was really excited that I was able to ask her a question, and I asked her, some people feel like Bill Gates is still a wonderful philanthropist. How do I talk about this? And I said, I feel like I'm worried that the billionaires are taking over the climate movement. How do we stop this? And she encouraged me to read and encouraged others to read her organization's report, which is called Gates to a Global Empire. And I will put the link in the chat so anyone can read it. And in it, the authors describe how Gates' philanthropy has corrupted many different areas of food and climate and health policy and advocacy organizations. And even at the Paris Climate Conference in 2015, Bill Gates was there, Justin Trudeau and Obama, and they said they were doing nice things, but as you know, nothing has happened. And they were only promoting false solutions, again, overshadowing the local solutions that work and that we can build. I feel that youth right now feel like we're not getting anywhere, and our youth and our leaders keep making promises and not taking action. We need to stay focused and support each other, implementing the solutions that don't require politicians while continuing to hold our leaders accountable. There are many ways that we can take action locally, like building local food systems that are healthy and regenerative. Thorsten Arnold is doing great work on that, and by growing community gardens, home gardens, and building relationships with local farmers and CSAs. Working close to home is important, and building off-grid homes and building community self-reliance by supporting local need-based industry. And then recognizing that what's healthy for us is healthy for the planet. And the topic today was wonderful, like how we can be an effective youth ally. And I think this is a great example of what adults can do to listen to youth and make them feel heard. It's even just listening today is a great gift. And I think doing more forums like this is a wonderful way to be an ally, but also just to engage in open dialogue and work together. So let's stay focused and build the future ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Aidan. You said it so quickly, but so poignantly. You said, why are we worrying about all the power, nuclear power, when we could just be using less? And a couple of months from now, we're going to be talking about the third R, reduce, reuse, reuse, reduce, recycle. So the reduce.
Yes, yeah, that's first, and then yeah, if you can't do that, then recycle. Yeah.
Our next presenter, that would be Hanna Mieli.
Hi, everyone. My name's Hannah. I'm a student at the University of Waterloo and a proud member of the Georgia Blessed community. So I'm studying environment, resources, and sustainability with a minor in French and biology. I'm an entrepreneur. I started served up tennis lessons. I'm also part of Fridays for Future Owen Sound with Aidan. So it's really awesome to see people in the community being here and taking initiative in a really important way. So I'm really grateful to be here and to talk about how to be a leader and some of the work that I've done, including starting my own sole proprietorship. And recently, I just developed a course on sustainability and anti-racism at the university level. To begin with, how to be heard by decision makers and influencers. So there are a number of ways that people try to be heard by decision makers and influencers. Some people write letters to their local government, protest, or speak in public about change that they want to see in the world regarding environmental degradation and climate change. The important component that people should consider including when it comes to making change is to take a systems thinking approach. A systems thinking approach takes a look at issues related to biodiversity loss, deforestation, really any of the issues that were already brought up by my peers, and taking a look at them from a systemic point of view, looking at it as if we're in a system that works in a certain way. So issues that come from the way in which our world functions. So with that approach in mind, a leader can convince people in power to make decisions that not only address the specific issue at hand, but that will also manifest as a positive impact on the system as a whole. So in doing so, you're taking a holistic approach that will have tremendous outcomes for the systems in which we live, as opposed to just having a kind of tunnel vision, narrow view on things. Not to say that you can't work on specific issues, that's really good, but seeing the broader impact of them. It's really important and indispensable to consider what the benefits will be for the decision makers and influencers, because they are probably more likely to work on an issue that has a good outcome for them. Right? I don't think any of us want to work on something that doesn't have a good outcome overall for the impact of our community. I think a lot of people, like there's a spectrum, right, of people who want a good outcome for their community, and there's also people who may be more inclined to work on projects that have benefits for them as a person. For example, if an influencer or decision maker working for a local government came to tell you to divest from fossil fuels, the thing is maybe the decision maker and influencer who you're talking to, their main source of investment is from fossil fuels. So what are you going to do then, right? You're telling them to divest from fossil fuels, but that's maybe their main source and what they've been relying on for years. So that creates a hurdle and a challenge, and that's inevitable in any project that you work on. You really have to stay strong and focus on your goals. You may need to do research or do outreach to see what blocks a decision maker or influencer from making change, and use that as a guide to craft arguments that are beneficial for the decision maker or influencer. So to get motivated for a project or something that you're working on to make a difference, I often have to think about what my intentions are. So in other words, I need to construct a rationale for doing something before I get started on it. So I've outlined some good questions here. You're welcome to take a screenshot of the screen with these questions on it, because these really are helpful in constructing kind of your thinking behind the project. And there's always a story to that, right? As to why you started something and how you created it. So these are some valuable questions that you could use to structure that. And then I think my peak motivation time is by starting to work on the project and doing some of the preliminary work that is required to get the project completed, like building the team, making decisions on our next steps, where we really see the project going, and getting started on it. An important thing to remember when thinking about the possibilities of your project is to never let self-doubt or uncertainty stop you from achieving something. If you have an idea, no matter how big or small, think of the idea creatively as to what it could become, and don't sell yourself short of what is possible, because tunnel vision or constraining yourself to limitations may stop you before you even get started. So ask yourself, why not? And what do you have to lose? And projects can take an immense amount of arduous work and dedication. It can mean time away from family and friends. It can mean more limited free time, and it can frankly lead to exhaustion. So staying motivated can be challenging and be hard for all of us. But it's important to realize this ahead of time before embarking on a project, because you have to logistically think about how you will stay motivated and on task. So a few things that I like to do to stay motivated is by talking to people who genuinely motivate me. And so some people that motivate me are my family members and my friends. And I'm sure I hope you guys have those sources of motivation within your community. I feel motivated and inspired by the people on this call. Another thing I like to do to stay motivated is to give myself rewards along the way. So it doesn't have to be at the very end of the project when I'm celebrating my accomplishments. It's more strategically planning, I'm going to celebrate after a week or a week and a half of working on the project. I like to look up motivational quotes. You can just look them up on Google Images, and some of them are really good, no matter how tacky they are. And I like to treat myself. Big Bay ice cream is one of the best ways to do that. So, yeah. As a part of rewarding myself, it's also important to set boundaries. So, for anyone working on a project, it's really important to set boundaries on what you're working on, because it's really easy to fall into the trap of overdoing it without even realizing that you are. And trust me, I've been there, and it's you really have to set boundaries on how much time you're putting into your project. So that's why it's important to work in a team setting, because you're able to allocate tasks to multiple people, instead of being overwhelmed by taking on too many tasks by yourself. Reach out to your members of your group when you're feeling overwhelmed or inundated with work. It may look like you may feel like self-doubt and uncertainty about doing that, but it's honestly the most honest thing to do, and will keep the momentum of the project going. It's better to do that than to keep pushing yourself to doing the aspect of the project that you were working on and are just exhausted by. So a person can support a young activist by, one, actively listening to their voices and what they're striving for. So Anna and Aidan, you made great points. And then two, this is really, really important to always work with them. If a youth has an idea and something that they want done in the world that creates positive change, try to coalesce with them on the project and collaborate with them, instead of, oh, that's a great idea, I'm gonna do that and do it all by myself. And then when working with them, always let them express their vision for it and what their aims are before pitching your ideas of the approach you would take. And ask them questions on their approach before providing advice or feedback. And try to stray away from language or examples that may discourage young activists from doing their work. Sometimes that can happen where you're like, well, this has happened in the past. Like, try to stay open-minded when you're giving feedback and advice. Be honest, but also try to stay open-minded. And then, even though you are older and more experienced, which is really appreciated, try not to use your position of power to control what the youth may be trying to do. It's important to acknowledge their work and the amount of time and effort they're putting into developing the project, and just make sure you're reinforcing positivity and are not overstepping. So, oh, and these are good podcasts. Sorry, I forgot I put in this slide. Yeah, these are good podcasts. This is Green Dreamer. So it's by a girl named Kamea Shane. And they're super, super amazing, very grassroots. It's incredible. And then this one is Outrage and Optimism. This one's a bit more on the funny side, but they talk about some serious issues, and they have someone from the United Nations on there, and it's a really good one. So I use Spotify to access these. I don't know if they're on any other, like iTunes or something like that, but they're really good.
There are so many questions in the chat, and we'll get to those. Hannah, I just wanted to say before we move to the next presenter that I don't think you'll have any trouble staying motivated or feeling supported with this group. And then we'll move on to Chris Akiwenzie.
Okay. Well, I also had a quick look at who was here today as participants, and well, saw my teacher here, so it feels like I'm kind of getting graded. So trying to make this how it goes. So my name is Chris Akiwenzie. I'm an Indigenous youth from the Chippewas and Nawash, unceded First Nation, or Nayashinaming. I come from a small fishing family, Akiwenzie's Fish and More. It was a family business we ran for about 16 years up until about 2018, which we had to shut down due to the decline of lake whitefish in Georgian Bay. So since then, it's kind of changed our life and what we have been doing for so many years, and my parents took to it to create a non-for-profit called BioWad, and to help increase awareness of the declining lake whitefish. but it's also a climate reality group as well. So I like people to think about it as lake whitefish being very vulnerable, and they have a very sensitive time when they come in, usually in the fall. When they come in to spawn, they rely on the ice during the winter to protect the youth, the young little fish. And over recent years, we haven't noticed this ice mass over Georgian Bay, and especially over where we live very close to a shoal that spawns lake whitefish. Anyways, due to the lack of ice and due to some other reasons as well, which I might get into when I talk about a little bit of my work, have led to this decrease. So that's kind of on my parents' side, the Bollywad side. I'm there to kind of help them and with the youth and what they kind of need and that. But I like to talk about, I guess, my work as well at the Chippewas and Nawash. I work at the Fisheries Assessment Program, and I currently went there, or I started there back in August 2020 as the ecological knowledge interviewer. And so my job is to go to the spawn fishermen here at the Chippewas and Nawash and the Chippewas of Saugeen First Nation, and to ask knowledge holders and fishermen about the interactions between lake whitefish and lake trout and how this has affected us. In our research, in my interviews as well, we're doing acoustic telemetry. There's like 5 stages to this project. And with the acoustic telemetry, it's to help us figure out where the whitefish are moving, figure out what the lake trout are doing, how they're interacting with each other, if they're competing with spawning grounds, if they're competing for the same food. I just like to spread the awareness of lake whitefish and how people can be allies and helping us realize what's happening in our Great Lakes, what's happening in Georgian Bay. I guess as a challenge, I like people to go out to the water and look at it and to feel it, feel how warm it is now, feel how different that water is. When I was a youth, this water here at Nayashinaming, it was cold during this time of year. I remember that back maybe not even 8 years ago, 10 years ago, and how that has changed, how the ice has not even been here to cover. I remember the one year in 2008, I believe it was, when we had a flash freeze and then was able to skate out onto Georgian Bay. First time in my life, probably the last time in my life too, because of this, because of climate change. So I just like people to realize how much the water has changed, how much climate change has affected everything. I guess for me, it's to help other youth to pass down more knowledge. Like in a lot of my work, due to COVID, I'm not allowed to do interviews anymore. But what I have been doing is focusing more on the education aspect now. I've been going to schools. I've been going to here at the Nawash school and doing demonstrations, telling kids, this is a whitefish, this is a lake trout. This is the difference between the two. Whitefish, they like the nice cold waters of Georgian Bay. And so I like to teach youth about that. I like to show them different little things, but also to learn from everyone as well. And during that process, hoping to learn a lot more about the lake whitefish and learning what they have been doing, what has changed mostly for them over this cycle, over a fisherman's lifetime. We're going to be interviewing elders to youth eventually, getting this information. So kind of important to hear all and understand everyone and value their knowledge. There will be a video, there will be a documentary, there will be a 20-minute and a 5-minute video I will be doing. And I guess I could also say on the personal side of things, I will be doing a UN film with, I believe it's York University and their planetary health, and hopefully submitting a video on the lake whitefish as well and the recent decline, and presenting that to the UN hopefully in November, I believe it was, in Glasgow, if we're allowed to travel.
Thank you, Chris. We're going to pose some questions soon, but I'll pass the mic over to Aidan Babbitt. Look forward to hearing all about Aidan and her activism. So go ahead when you're ready, Aidan. And thank you again, Chris.
Thank you. Hi, so my name is Aidan Babbitt. I'm 15 years old, and I am a high school student in Walkerton, but I am also a 3-year student of At Last Forest School, which is the #1 thing that is the reason why I'm here today. So my journey started in April of 2018. I got to listen to Dr. Goodall speak in Hamilton, and it was honestly the #1 best day of my life. It was the most inspirational thing I have ever experienced. And it really opened my eyes and showed me that I need to do better and I need to be the one to make this change. So almost immediately, I started my fundraiser, Eden for Our Environment, immediately started to raise money for the Jane Goodall Institute. That was 2 years ago. And I've had so much support since I started that. When I started, it was just an Instagram page with people that I know to see what I'm up to and support me there. And over the past 2 years, it is blossomed into so much more. We have raised many dollars for the Jane Goodall Institute, and we have done many different fundraisers and cool things over the past few years. I was very fortunate to be in the community that I am in. And some of the experiences I've had are, I was the keynote speaker at the Kincardine Rally for Climate Change. And I was the 2020 winner of the OPG Environmental Award. And those are just few of the countless opportunities and cool things that I've gotten to participate in over the years. But that first day when I was listening to Dr. Goodall speak in Hamilton, I learned that our planet is dying. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I learned that our planet is dying, and I decided that it is my job to do something about it. And it is my job to inspire my peers and inspire the people of my community to also do something about it. So I've been so busy over the past 2 years with this, and it has really become a big part in my life because it is what I stand for. I have luckily had the support from my mom, and she has really helped me out through the whole thing. It has been really helpful to have her on the technical side behind the scenes. So thank you. But yeah, so Eden for Our Environment started 2 years ago, and throughout it we have done lots of like different fun little things. So currently I am working on a project that I've been posting about regularly. I was sitting somewhere thinking to myself, how can I inspire people to get from point A to point B with as little environmental impact as possible? And I thought to myself, well, I like to bike. So then this idea started that I was going to ride my bike from my house in Point Clark all the way up the peninsula to Tobermory. And I had posted this idea on my Instagram, and my amazing community of people who support me jumped right on board. And so I decided, I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I've been training for, I think, 2 or 3 months now on my bike. And we have raised for this specific fundraiser alone, we have raised nearly $2,500 for the Jane Goodall Institute, which is absolutely nuts. Like, our initial goal was $1,000, and we really shot for the stars on that one. So I'm so thankful for my community and the people that support me. So that's where I'm at now. My whole goal in life is to inspire people to do better. That is what I stand for, because our planet is dying. And in my opinion, as a 15-year-old, we have given the adults enough time to fix our hurting planet. It is time for myself and our other wonderful speakers tonight to take action, because we need to teach people how to be better.
Where do the plants come from for the pollinator gardens, and how many are you involved in? That's for Anna.
So a lot of them I got from a lady just down the road, Julie Lambert. She has a native plant nursery, I think rooted by the bluffs. So I got a lot from her. And then a few people, a woman just down the road donated a few of them. I have, including the one at my house, I have 5 around, 1 in Owen Sound, and then 2 or 3 just within a few kilometers of my house. And I'm actually also involved in a community garden in both Owen Sound and Meaford.
Okay, that is great, and it shows the community connections, and that's what we heard in many of the contributions tonight. How everybody is connected, tries to be connected, and how connections help you to move forward. What are the primary concerns that you hear? That's I guess it's to all panels. Maybe there's just a quick answer to that one if you want, or who wants to take that on.
Let me think about that, but definitely industrial things and infrastructure development is a key concern, especially with more people moving from the city to our area.
I would love to have engaged youth come to the town council and discuss development and zoning things, or on the county level. That would be so powerful to have young voices, rather than people who just seem to want to hold on to their whatever, their little oasis.
What can we do, since we're talking to decision makers all the time, municipalities, et cetera? What can we do to make your lives easier as activists?
For people getting involved, it's really just backing a youth that's trying to support a story, I guess you can say, or an issue, and backing them. I know it's a little bit different for municipalities and the government here in the reserve, but for me, it's finding those very few people that actually have that same connection as you, that same story, that same drive. I think that's what really will help you move forward, finding someone that has done this before, who has that fight, and then continuing on with that fight. Very much like my parents with BioWad, and me hopefully continuing that with bringing out more bringing out hopefully more people and seeing what's happening with climate change and the recent decline of lake whitefish.
I mean, Chris, you really speak to resilience. I think resilience in your family, but also of our communities. I remember many years ago when your family was attacked at the Owen Sound Farmers Market. And I will never forget that moment. I also like what you said earlier about talking to the elders. Again, kind of, there's so many resources and there's so much knowledge in community, which is often lost. I really appreciate that.
I'd like to also pose the same question to Aidan, if that's okay. So Aidan, maybe you could tell us, because that's the theme of tonight, is what can us volunteers who are talking occasionally to municipalities, what can we do to make your lives easier as an activist and raise more money?
One of the biggest things, why is my community going to listen to a 13-year-old at the time? Because am I going to be heard by my community? And one of the things that really, really impacted, like letting people know that, hey, this person is trying to make a difference for your life and all of our lives. What really stands out to me is when people tell me that I inspired them, and then I go out and see them doing things out in the world to protect our environment, to protect our natural world. So not only sharing the message with other people, but acting on the message itself is really, really helpful.
Do any of you see a spiritual dimension to the climate change question? And how important is this to you?
Yes, I think that there is. I think whenever we disrespect the land, it's disrespecting nature's divine intelligence. A while ago, I did a post. Sometimes I post a climate strike online, and I posted one that said, technologies like gene editing and geoengineering is not the solution. Nature's intelligence is the answer. So I think there is a spiritual force that works through nature, and when we don't respect that, it's going to lead to consequences for us. Like learning from indigenous people how they believe there's a spiritual force within the cosmos, and all of their teachings built on that.
Do you find others in your age group as dedicated to finding solutions as yourself?
I wouldn't say that I hear climate deniers. I just hear like fear, and then people become stagnant. Like they don't know what to do necessarily. Like they know there's the option to be vegetarian or vegan, or involving themselves in creating more vegetation in their backyard, and raising awareness about climate issues. But I think there's just a lack of action. Like they know it's there and they have the knowledge, but it's a lack of action because it's a whole change in lifestyle in a way. And change is scary for some people at our age.
I find with the people who are my peers, it's also, they're just not, they don't think about it. They're not aware of it all the time. It almost seems like there's a time and a place to think about, oh yes, let's to do something for the earth, but it's not, you need to be thinking about it with each decision. Each decision you make has an impact, and I don't think that that's quite clicked with a lot of people.
The number one thing we can do is just take your cause that you care about and run with it to amplify your voice. I hope I don't know if anyone feels the same way as I do, but there's nothing like a cause that gets people rallied up. You can just see that the aquaculture plant up in Copoys Bay. Motivation in nature, I find that a really recurring common thread here too. And the fisheries, the whitefish, I just can't wait to find out more about that.
Well, I know for myself, like nothing can get done without the support of the people in our communities. So thank you so much for listening to our stories.
I liked hearing from all the other panelists and all the other youth that are out and around the San territory.
I would love to hear also on the projects that you're working on, and it's just really incredible to see the positive change that's happening across generations, and that's the way it should be, because not only are we focusing on the current generation, but we're also focusing on past and future generations to make the world a better place. So I think we can all learn from the flaws of the world and make the change that we can see right directly in our community. And I think we have all the right people to make that possible.
I think I heard so many great solutions from some of the youth speakers. Like, I was surprised how many things that I heard about the gardens for bees and butterflies. That's something that I think is a great idea. I remember some food groups, and that's a thing that is quite important. That the amount of glyphosate and different pesticides is really decreasing the population of insects. Also, I'm thinking about doing youth gatherings, maybe to talk about issues that we can do. So you can email me if you would like to do that.
I think that just important thing is to inform yourself and find something that you're passionate about, and then find other people who are passionate about the same thing, and that way you can make connections and make a greater impact.
I'll pass it over to Joachim, but I just want to make sure everyone knows that we work on third Thursdays, and next third Thursday is August 19th. And it will be about sustainable tourism and development. So our guest speaker will be Megan Miles.
So thanks again to the panelists. It was really great, really inspiring, and to everybody who participated in the conversations and discussions. As I heard, I mean, the big thing is that we need to work together, all of us,